Hello. You've come at the right time, but you'll have to wait for just a moment, as there are some urgent matters I must tend to first. In the meantime, please, have a seat. If you'd like to have something to drink, let the Melusine outside know. Very well, then. All right. That should wrap things up for now. Yes, sorry to keep you waiting. Today should be the day you were released from the Fortress of Meripede, and it appears that you have managed to complete all the release paperwork. A massive whale. Judging from your description, that cannot have occurred in any ordinary waters, but rather something like the primordial sea. A whale of that size and shape cannot usually be found in the waters of Teyvat. Therefore, we can only assume that Child is presently immersed in primordial seawater. Most people wouldn't be capable of entering in the first place. I'm not completely sure how he could have gotten there myself. Yes, what is it? It turns out that I have just received a report about this particular matter. In fact, that's exactly what I was busy with a moment ago. The source of the tremor was here on the surface near Poisson. After the shaking stopped, the water levels in the Poisson area rose at an alarming rate. Fortunately, the water levels only rose for a short period of time and have already returned to normal now. However, I still have a bad feeling about the whole phenomenon. If the change in water levels is connected with the leaking primordial seawater, then the situation in Poisson may be much worse than it appears. I would also like to go there as soon as possible, but I'm afraid I can't leave just yet. We must immediately formulate disaster prevention plans for the surrounding coastal areas to avoid potential catastrophes. I'll have to ask you two to go to Poisson first. I'll meet you there to check on the situation once I finish things here. Please be careful. Silence! Such commotion is prohibited in the court. The accusations you just presented are nonsense and cannot constitute a proper trial. The court will adjourn for the rest of the day. In this, I shall hear no objections from any unauthorized party. Please leave with me, Miss Navia, while there is still time. Quickly, you must come now! You're awake? Good. It looks like you're all right. The ruins you were exploring suffered a cave-in. When I arrived, I found you falling toward the water. You were just about to be dissolved within, but I think I saw two Oceanids protecting you. It was only for a moment, perhaps even a fraction of a second, but they gave me the chance to retrieve you. Were it not for their intervention, I would not have been able to rescue you before your consciousness dissipated. Perhaps those two Oceanids were the people you saw in your dream. Please come with me. Oh, I am quite all right. Perhaps there's something we could chat about? I merely thought that we should give Navia some time to herself. I suppose so. Ah, Sigewinne. I hope all is well with her these days. Her work in the Fortress of Meripede has not been too much for her, has it? I see. Well, that is good. I have always worried that Sigewinne would need a lot of time to understand the world of humanity, just as I have. Thank you. I have indeed been busy lately, and I also hope that everything is going well in the Fortress of Meripede. Yes, of course. Yes, in fact. I had arranged to meet you in Poisson, but when I arrived, I discovered that the Fatui were helping the residents evacuate. They had even transported a large quantity of supplies to the area. Amid my astonishment, I ran into the knave, and we had a chat. She informed me that she had asked you to investigate the ancient ruins here. Yes, if you wouldn't mind my company.
Looks like we've reached the end.
This is the place. There should not be any other hidden spaces in the vicinity. The surrounding walls also show signs of damage. That would fit the circumstances dictated by the prophecy, yes. Indeed, the slate's contents correspond to it. Take the second slate, for example. The people will all be dissolved into the waters, and only the Hydro Archon will remain. weeping on her throne. More information should be hidden in these slates, but I fear I cannot easily uncover it, most likely due to us missing the first slate. I am very sorry. And yet the order is reversed here. Egeria, then. I had never met her, but her appearance here does match the records. The previous Archon kneeling before the floating island in the skies, as if confessing a sin. It seems that any further clues will have to come from Farina. I'll depart as well. Thanks for your hard work today. Rest well, everyone. Traveler, I will go talk to Farina tomorrow morning to ask about the stone slates. I'm sure that you're concerned about this matter as well. If you have time, drop by my office. I will share the results of our discussion with you. She has long been harboring secrets and will not give them up easily, which makes it all the more my duty to ensure that she understands the present situation. I will be carefully considering my words tonight. And yet the problem has not been properly solved. There is little space for excuses between us. It is not my intention to offend you, but please, tell me where you stand. You are the Hydro Archon Focalors, are you not? Look at this. This is a list of the victims from the recent Poisson incident. We did not arrive in time to avert this disaster, and I will not have it happen again. I will say this once more. You must tell me everything you know. Yesterday, I found 3 stone slates in some ancient ruins near Poisson. Do you know anything about those? That's correct, which is why I came to ask you some questions. There should have been 4 slates, but one of them was missing. The other 3 feature different images that seem to correlate to the prophecy. The second of these slates depicts the previous Hydro Archon Egeria kneeling before a floating island in the sky, as if confessing something. Do you know nothing of this either? I'll ask you again. Do you really have no information regarding the previous Archon? My deciphering of the slates indicates that the Hydro Archon Egeria once had to confess to, or apologize for, a certain sin. If anyone would know about it, it should be you. Forgive me for saying this now, Lady Farina, but I have long known of your various secret investigations into certain matters. There are several indications that you have been investigating the prophecy on the sly. This is not strange in itself, considering that you are the Hydro Archon. But it is strange that you should also claim to not know any of Egeria's secrets, as well as do nothing following your inquiries. You have never been as superficial as you have presented yourself to be, nor are you a fool. And yet, your behavior is very inconsistent. You... I assume you've been outside for a while now? She was in a great panic, though I cannot discern the reason. Our discussion reached impasses time and again, a state of affairs that we cannot allow to continue. Still, I do not understand. Dialogue is the basis for understanding, so why did she keep refusing to engage? Everyone in her inner circle has noticed that she is hiding some secret. The issue is her attitude. I fear that she will not reveal anything unless absolutely forced to. We may have to create a situation in which she will have no choice but to speak. Normally, people will only reveal the truth when standing trial. Perhaps we must have the Hydro Archon experience just such a scenario. We will need to consider this thoroughly, join forces with various parties, and then do what we can. If at all possible, I would prefer to recuse myself from this affair, but we must prevent the prophecy from coming to pass. This may be cruel to her, but all Fontaine is in crisis. The information a god possesses is too precious, and so we must take a chance on this. But who will lend us their aid to do such a thing? I fear that I will cause the mood on this boat to become as somber as it is in court. He is glad that you consider him your boss. Do go on. I fear I do not have any related experience. I would like for it to be effective, but bring no harm to the prey. A more gentle trap would be ideal. If our means of capturing and dealing with our prey is to put them on trial, then the hunting metaphor is actually quite accurate. But we shall require much more courage than any hunter to judge a god, a being whose seat is an exalted throne. May I interpret these words as your refusal to stand trial? In that case, you will have the opportunity to defend your honor through a duel. The court asks the prosecutor to please take the stand. Yes, that is correct. The prosecution and the defense are both in position. The trial shall now begin. Charge accepted. Lady Farina, do you plead guilty to the charge? Lady Farina. A curse? I once thought it possible that the aura of an Archon might naturally resemble a type of curse. But in light of this claim, perhaps what I sensed was not your divinity, but a curse after all. Lady Farina, I believe a reminder of your current circumstances is in order. While the court is in session, the principles of justice and the law must come before all else. While you are an Archon, you are also first and foremost the defendant in this trial. You will prove yourself unable to defend against the prosecution's charges if you continue to withhold vital information against the rules of the court. That was no trick of rhetoric, Lady Farina. I've merely reiterated the rules of the court. Rules that all should respect and follow. If that poses a concern, I'm prepared to extend my protection to the audience. Miss Navia, please apply to serve as a temporary attorney for the prosecution before addressing the court. Though you act in partnership with the prosecutor, you must still adhere to proper procedure. Lady Farina, this test has been unilaterally proposed by the prosecution. As it falls outside the realm of standard court proceedings, you possess the right to decline participation. Due to the inherent risk of the test, Lady Farina, you may... Miss Siegewin? If you are present, Miss Siegewin, please come forward and attend to the defendant. Please announce the results of your evaluation to the court, Miss Siegewin. Thank you, Miss Siegewin. Lady Farina, you may return to the defendant's stand. I believe the time for arguments and presentation of evidence has come to an end. If there are no objections, we will move on to the final judgment. In my capacity as Chief Justice, I shall now render judgment on Farina's misrepresentation of herself as the Archon of Fontaine. As a human who knowingly deceived her fellow citizens, Farina is... guilty. We shall now turn to the Oratrice Mécanique d'Analyse Cardinale to render the final verdict on the charges. According to the judgment of the Oratrice Mécanique d'Analyse Cardinale, Farina is... No, the Oratrice also displays a guilty verdict. However, the exact wording of the verdict is thus: the Hydro Archon, guilty, to be punished via the death sentence. This outcome is indeed quite strange. According to Fontaine's current definitions of justice, as well as its recommendations for criminal sentences, is this sentence really appropriate for the crimes that have been committed? Indeed. Not only is Farina's sentence overly excessive, the very point of our trial today was also to prove that Farina has never been the Hydro Archon in the first place. But now, the Oratrice seems to have deliberately invoked the title of the Hydro Archon. What does this mean? Thank you for your hard work, Mr. Fremenet. Please allow me to review the record left on the slate. Traveler, I believe that you have already seen the other existing slates, and would like you to come here and confirm their contents. I believe I have now made sense of the Hydro Archon's crime. It has to do with Fontaine's lost history. In truth, everything that you've encountered in Fontaine up until this point can be traced back to the contents of these stone slates. However, I'm uncertain as to how much sense they currently make to you. Let's hear them. Indeed. And yet, after many hundreds of years, the Hydro Archon's creations have turned around to try to judge the Archon within the Opera Epiclese. The twists of history are often the most unexpected of all. You've made some keen deductions. I must say, given how much you still don't know, it is impressive that you've already managed to connect so many pieces of the truth. However, while you were able to decode all the information on the slates, they've also been etched with an additional layer of hidden information using a different power source. When we were at the ruins, I tried to decipher the hidden information recorded in the slates. But since we only had 3 slates at the time, I was unable to come to a full conclusion. Now that the slate collection is complete, I shall make another attempt to decipher the narrative recorded within. If everything goes well, we should finally be informed of the unadulterated truth. I believe I should share this truth not only with you, but with all the people of Fontaine as well. I will try to briefly summarize it for you. Your hypotheses regarding the origin of Fontainians and the sin of the Hydro Archon were both correct. In the Fontaine of old, the previous Hydro Archon sensed the yearning of her Oceanid familiars for life on land. The Oceanids were enamored with the beauty and romanticism of human beings, and wishing to have those experiences for themselves, expressed to the Hydro Archon their desire to become of a similar kind. However, even though water as an element is intricately linked with the power of life, the Hydro Archon, as one of the 7, did not possess the authority to create a new form of human life. Not one to give in, she eventually found a way to create permanent humanoid bodies for her familiars by appropriating the power of this planet's primordial sea. She poured primordial seawater into the Oceanids' blood vessels, creating humanoid mimics in the process. But if Fontainians were to ever come into direct contact with water from the primordial sea, the power within their bodies would escape these artificial restraints and return to the sea. As a result, their forms would collapse, and they would be reverted to their original forms as Oceanids. Of course, the Hydro Archon never received permission from the heavenly principles to create a new human race. And thus, the Hydro Archon and all of her creations came to shoulder the original sin of appropriating the power of the primordial sea. That is the true history of how the people of Fontaine first came into being. Alas, your hypothesis regarding the 3rd and 4th stone slates was inaccurate. The slates' respective positions are, in fact, correct. A key point of the visual on the 3rd slate is how all the individuals depicted in the water are humans rather than Oceanids. They have not been dissolved, which implies that the water depicted in this slate is not water from the primordial sea. The nation of Fontaine is the nation of Hydro, as well as the nation of trials and justice. Instead of being the literal element, the water in the scene symbolizes judgment and justice. You may also recall Navia's experience. When she fell into the sea, her consciousness was surrounded by that of many others who intended to hold a trial to determine her fate. Therefore, the meaning of the 3rd slate is that the people of Fontaine shall try the Hydro Archon at the court of justice. Yes, it refers to our present situation. Traveler, I would like to point out another small fallacy in your deductions. About the 4th slate, you probably thought that the eruption of primordial seawater beneath the fortress of Meripede served as the surest sign that the prophecy was about to come to pass, yes? However, I believe that rather than being a sure sign, that eruption could in fact only be a small warning of something far worse to come. As for the root cause of the catastrophe, I believe you've already encountered it once before. This eruption was just a small warning of the things to come. We must find the root cause of the disaster. So we've met it at last. I understand very well why it has chosen to make an appearance here. That whale does not belong to Tevat. It is a monster that has traversed the stars, weeping all the while. It has been greedily consuming the energy from the planet's primordial sea, using it to grow. That is the main cause for the rising sea levels. And once it has finished consuming all of the energy contained within the sea, its next step will be... Precisely. That whale finds the blood of Fontainians nigh impossible to resist. Therefore, when it left the primordial sea, it decided to make its next stop a packed opera house full of food. Food in the form of Fontainians. That is correct. Indeed, it is more accurate to say that we should thank that harbinger for buying us some time. Without him, the whale would have likely come onto land far sooner. From the way he looked, he must have been fighting the creature for quite a long time. It is too late. It had already absorbed too much of the primordial sea's energy before we could notice it. At this point, it has become practically integrated with the sea itself. Even if the entirety of Tevat were to be destroyed, it could still survive and swim off towards some other world. I believe it is preparing to carry out the death sentence. You are not Farina. Who are you? Focalors. Why did you deceive us? Deceiving the heavenly principles. So you were also once one of the Oceanids, transformed into a human by Egeria's hand.
Anyway, so then I cursed her.
But Farina is only human, isn't she? Even though she has had a long life, her mind is no stronger than that of any other ordinary human being. I cannot begin to fathom what she has had to endure. It must have been torture for her. So even Farina doesn't know the truth? You've never once let her in on the full plan? I believe that I understand how your deception works, but that is only half the truth, is it not? How would you build on this foundation to save the people of Fontaine? That is the most important thing. I've always suspected that it had its own consciousness, and Lenny did mention that he heard a human voice within the core chamber. It now seems that that person was you, hidden within the machine all along. Am I right? I beg your pardon? It was all a part of your plan then? Both the trial and the sentence? The destruction of that divine throne? If I do not misunderstand your intent, you must be... But...
Oh, what? Getting sad again, are we?
All you've done throughout the years is just so you can sacrifice yourself at the very end.
Hydro Dragon, don't cry.
So when I was invited to the court of Fontaine to serve as Eudex, I see now that that was your idea too. At last. I now understand the true purpose behind this position. In the beginning, I was uninterested in human existence. But these 5 centuries of living alongside them have gradually brought about mutual understanding between us. And I have even attempted to feel as they feel. You are a devious one, Focalors. Things being as they are, surely you know that I could never declare them to be guilty.
The hour of my execution is almost here. Farewell, Neuvillette.
Iudex Neuvillette, hereby declare, people of Fontaine, your sins are forgiven. It's time to end this. We must mete out punishment to that beast. I have gained the strength sufficient to deal with it. Through certain means, I now have the ability to separate the power of the Primordial Sea from that creature. We should seize the opportunity to pursue our quarry. Traveler, now that the oratories can no longer function, I require an executor to help me mete out justice. The root of the calamities befalling Fontaine. The beast that enacts the prophecy. Its name is the all-devouring narwhal. Come with me, traveler. The hour of execution has come. I've already done my best to separate the power of the Primordial Sea from the whale. Considering the size of the beast, I cannot reach the power source. Unless we can find a way to attack it from within. I shall share a part of the ancient dragon's power with you. We shall look for an opening together. We can feel its sorrow turn into hostility. The all-devouring narwhal cannot resist its instinct to devour. Continue to trigger its hostility. A chance will present itself. I have granted you my protection. Do not fear. Seize the moment and use my power to suppress its root from within. Who are you exactly? I am unfamiliar with that name. The Foul? Not to worry. Focalors has already managed to deceive the heavenly principles. Really? Oh, I suppose you must have met Mr. Linney. He took the time to greet me earlier when he passed this way. In any case, you came at a good time. I was just considering reaching out to you to set up a meeting, so I may explain some things that I haven't had the time to before. It is strange how words can often leave a bitter taste in the mouth when it finally comes time to say them out loud. For me, the authority of the ancient dragons refers to absolute control over the hydro element. Fontainians were incomplete humans born of Egeria's use of the power of the primordial sea, with constitutions similar to that of mimics. But so long as those primordial energies remain within them, I could use the ancient dragon's authority to grant them true blood, after the fashion in which life was first brought into being on this planet. In other words, when I gave my verdict, Fontainians became true humans, and thus would naturally no longer be dissolved by water from the primordial sea. It seems from your expressions that you still have more things you wish to ask. Ask away. I will tell you the truth as I know it. I have investigated his case along many avenues, and I have learned that he once fell into an unknown chasm when he was young. There, by chance, he awakened the all-devouring narwhal. But whether it be by sentiment or reason, that should not have been enough to consider him the root cause of the disaster. At most, he would have had tangential liability. As for the judgment passed by the oratrice during the trial, whether it was due to that liability by association or Focalors deliberately using him to buy time for us on the assumption that he would be able to hold the creature off, I cannot say. Life has always flowed like water. Do you recall how Fontainians would often come to the Fountain of Lucine to pray for children? In truth, even those couples did not know that such prayers were no mere custom, but instead a form of ritual. Those Oceanids who were blessed within the spring water would later descend as new humans in the coming months. Ask away. I will tell you the truth as I know it. Ah, Lady Farina. The people are only aware that her death sentence has not been carried out. She abdicated the post of Hydro Archon and left affairs related to that title to me, before leaving the Opera House. I related Focalors' words to her faithfully and completely. After hearing them, she seemed neither saddened nor comforted. She simply said that she was tired and needed to rest. Having said that, she then packed her things and moved out of the Opera House, not unlike how an ordinary person might. You need not worry. I will make arrangements to ensure that she will not want for food, clothing, board, or travel. In truth, I am somewhat happy for her. The wear and tear on her spirit will, of course, take time to heal. But now that she no longer has to play the role of Focalor the Hydro Archon, she can finally lay down her burdens and lead a normal life. After Focalor passed on, the Oratrice also ceased to function. This matter will directly affect our trials. After much careful consideration, I've decided to take over its role in our courts. From now on, I shall hear cases and pass verdicts by myself. As an elemental dragon, there are indeed many things that I must do. But this power and this duty, in a manner of speaking, you could say that both were granted to me. As such, before I attend to my other responsibilities, I must first and foremost continue to serve Fontaine as its highest judge. The duty of the Hydro Sovereign and the duty of the Iudex shall coexist within my person. Additionally, the Hydro Archon's departure has brought about another problem, which is that the Opera House shall no longer produce indemnitium. As I am now, I have full command over New Musia, and it can serve as a complete substitute. Another reason why I cannot quite leave Fontaine immediately. Leaving aside their intentionality, the two Fatui Harbingers have indeed done much for us during this crisis. Their sole remaining goal in Fontaine, at least at this point, would seem to be the Gnosis. The Oratrice has ceased to function. The Hydro Archon's divine throne is now no more, and I do not need the Gnosis's power. As such, it has lost all meaning for Fontaine. If the Fatui have impure designs, then we might as well accede to their request now, and avoid unnecessary conflict. You will soon be heading to Natlan, I presume? I'm afraid that I have little talent as a travel guide, so all I can do is tell you what I know about that land. As far as I'm aware, Natlan can be said to be a nation of dragons. No, I suspect that I would not find myself welcome there. Unlike ancient dragons such as myself, the dragons of Natlan have undergone long years of development and evolution. Large numbers of them have entered a form of coexistence with humanity. Natlan is also the nation of war. War ravages those lands like an undying flame. There is one other piece of information I got incidentally from my negotiations with the Knave that I believe may be useful to you. The Harbinger known as the Captain has thrown his hat into the endless ring of war. I suggest that you fully prepare yourself before going to Natlan. In the meantime, Fontaine's doors will always be open to you. Ask away. I will tell you the truth as I know it. No wonder the House of the Hearth is the Fatui's intelligence division. They are certainly sharp. So regarding this specific issue, I was just getting ready to share something with you. In truth, I exchanged some further words with that lady named Skirk after sending you two back to the surface. It went something like this. What next? I do not know what you speak of. Remains? I've never heard of any such thing. Well, that much is true. After Focalor's divinity faded, she handed her gnosis to me. But I fear I have never heard of it described in the manner that you just did. What do you mean by that? This third descender you refer to, who are they? And when did they die? Next time, you believe we will meet again? That's what she told me. Whether it would prove useful or not, I wanted to pass that information on to you. All the same, assuming that there was no misunderstanding or special metaphor at play, that is what she meant to say. If she speaks the truth, then I would simply be putting Fontaine at unnecessary risk by keeping it here. I guessed that you might already be familiar with this concept, but I did not expect you to be one of them. That means that the Gnosis, which are exceedingly element-compatible and can even enhance elemental abilities, do indeed come from the third descender. I wonder, does your body also possess similar properties? I too believe it unwise to make too many blind guesses when information is lacking. The same is true of being at court. Yes. All of Focalors' efforts were for this moment as well. I suppose that would be the mystery of a god's will. I suspect not. But once in a while, I too would guess that if wishes were like the clouds in the sky, they will one day return to the earth as raindrops. Life flows like water, and rain is the final answer. The water levels may sometimes tilt one way or another, but the rain falls fairly upon all. And what, ultimately, is the difference between the rains that fall upon all of us?